Hi everybody, we're going to finish up our discussion of part one of the origins of prayer. The end of the slideshow, if you have the slides open, it's slide number 11. Very, very important passage in the Gemara Masechet Brachot. Some of you may have actually studied this Gemara, maybe in middle school or a different point. The source for Shacharit, Mincha, and Maariv. We've spoken for some time about how prayer really didn't have a specific time and a specific place. And what's interesting about this passage is it tells us a little bit about how we got to where we are today in terms of tefillah, in terms of having 3 times a day to pray. So this is a debate in the Gemara, and in the 12th slide, it's brought here in English. This is a debate. Were the prayers, the three times a day, Shacharit, Mincha, Maariv, established based on Korbanot, or were they established based on the Avot? And in Hebrew, that's called Tefillot Avot Tiknum versus Tefillot Keneged Tmidin Tiknum. Now, if you look here at this chart, this basically summarizes everything the Gemara says. In the right-hand column, we have the 3 Tefillot, Shacharit, Mincha, Maariv, and the source for them is either from the Avot or from the Tmidin. Tmidin is another word for the Korban Tamid, which is a special Korban brought every single day in the Beit HaMikdash, twice a day. You guessed it, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. As the Torah says, Korban Tamid Shel Shachar, the morning offering, the morning Tamid, from the word always, constant. At a keves echad taseh baboker, we offer 1 sheep in the morning. That's the Shacharit, parallels Shacharit, and Korban Tamid Shebein Arbaim, the afternoon Korban Tamid, ve'et keves hasheni taseh bein ha'arbaim. The second sheep is brought in the afternoon. So according to the opinion of the Gemara that says that our tefillot were established according to the Korbanot, we have a source, clear source for Shacharit and Mincha. We'll get to Maariv in a moment. If you look in the middle column, we have the other opinion of the Gemara that says that the prayers, 3 prayers a day, were established by Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Each instance, example of prayer is a word that is related to what we do or what we say when we pray. By Abraham, it says Vayashkem, Abraham el makom asher amat sham. Abraham woke up to the place where he stood. That's the story of Sodom. In Amidah el Tefillah, the Gemara learns that standing is a element of Tefillah. So we see that Avram Vayashkem, he woke up early. That relates to Shacharit. Abraham established the morning Tefillah. Yitzchak, the son of Abraham, the second of the Avot, established the Tefillah of Mincha. Vayetze Yitzchak lasuach basadeh. Yitzchak went out, literally means to take a stroll in the field, but here the Gemara means lasuach doesn't mean only taken literally that he went for a walk. Rather, he went to have a conversation from the word suach, siach, which means sicha, ein sicha, el tefillah. He went to have a conversation with God. It's understood that this was in the middle of the day, the time of Mincha. And then Yaakov, son of Yitzchak, the third of the Avot, established the Tefillah of Ma'ariv. This is not Yaakov dancing with someone. This is Yaakov fighting with the angel. Maybe it was Esav. That's what people say. Anyway, it says over here that when Yaakov lay down to go to sleep, Vayifka b'makom, he happened upon the place. That's what it literally means. And the Gemara learns, Ein pigiyah ela tefillah. Pigiyah doesn't just mean he stumbled upon this place, he happened upon this place, but he actually prayed there. And we know that was when he had the dream about the ladders going up and down. That was a moment of tefillah. Yaakov prayed Ma'ariv. So we have precedent for Shacharit, Mincha, and Maariv by the Avot. When it comes to the Korbanot, we seem to only have 2 Korbanot that were brought every day. The Korban Tamid Shel Shachar, the one given in the morning, the one in the afternoon, which corresponds to Shacharit and Mincha. What happened in Maariv? There was no Korban offered at Maariv. So the Gemara says what they would do was, at Maariv, they would burn the leftover fat and limbs that were basically left over from these two korbanot, these two sacrifices, and they would burn them on top of the mizbeach in the evening. So the Gemara basically concludes with the following line. There's basically an issue that the problem with musaf, that we have musaf, meaning musaf we say on Shabbat, musaf we say on Rosh Chodesh, which is corresponding to a korban, and we know that there was no fourth of the avot. Therefore, how could you say that the prayers were established according to the avot if there's no fourth av to give us the musaf prayer? So the answer is, he must hold, therefore the patriarchs instituted the prayers. The rabbis found the basis for them in the offering. So it's basically a little bit of both. That's the answer to the Gemara. That on the one hand, tefillah is instituted by the avot, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Shachar, Mincha, Marav, but there is a basis for them in the korbanot themselves. So the institution of tefillah, that there should be this thing of Shachar, Mincha, Marav, that was Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, but in order to give it a Torah base, that it actually exists in the Torah, that we would pray these different times a day, that we turn to the korbanot. And of course we know there was a korban tamid shel shachar, korban tamid shel ben arbaim in the afternoon. The burning of the fats at night corresponds to Marv, and Musaf itself, the Korban Musaf, brought on holidays, Shabbat and Rosh Chodesh. So that's the end of the Gemara. We see that the institution of Tefillah is already hinted to in the Torah itself. So nice little neat chart here that I made for you, just to see what's interesting about how the fact that our sages are in our Chazal established tefillah based on what the Avot did and based on what the Korbanot were. It's interesting to see that there is really a difference between tefillah that's corresponding to the fact that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov prayed, as opposed to tefillah being established as a commemoration or kind of a repetition, a parallel of the korbanot themselves. So just a few points of difference. Who instituted the tefillah? So in the case of the avot, it was man. In the case of the korbanot, it was God who told us to bring korbanot. Who's the focus of the tefillah? In the case of the avot, it's God. In the case of the korbanot, it's man. It's what I need versus what praising God, etc. in the case of the avot. What is the motivation of the tefillah? No specific motivation. Yitzchak went out, lasuach basadeh. Avraham is vayamod Avram. He stood up, he woke up. No specific motivation. Whereas in the case of korbanot, the reason why we bring korbanot is just because we feel like it. There's a specific reason. You sinned, chatat, you sinned, you had to bring a korban. You were happy, you wanted to give thanks, you had a child, etc. There's specific reason, specific motivation. The structure of the tefillah, in case of the avot, there's no structure, there's no rules. You just pray whatever you want. In case of the korbanot, has to be done in a certain way, and sometimes there's specific things that have to be said. Who participates? Anyone. Tefillah of the avot is not specific to any person or any kind of religious leader. Whereas the korbanot, that was done by the Kohanim. Not everybody was allowed to participate in that service. Lastly, where does the tefillah take place? We know in the time of the avot, anywhere, wherever they were, on the floor, on the field, in a mountain, standing on some tall rock, whatever it was, as opposed to korbanot, which takes place in the Beit HaMikdash. This gives us a little bit of a sense of the real big difference between Tefillah of the Avot and Tefillah of Korbanot. What is that difference? Ultimately, in its core, I want you to think about that question and answer it on a sheet that I'm going to send you. Finally, thinking about how to make tefillah personal. Because of all this structure, and because it's so challenging, and because it's so difficult, these are some quotes from an interview that was with Rabbi Moshe Weinberger, who is a rabbi in the Five Towns, and he's also a mashgiach at Yeshiva University. He has a whole list of beautiful quotes about tefillah and about how to make it personal. I'm going to leave you with this. You can read them on your own. And the further study is going to be on the worksheet which follows after this video.